For as long as humans have looked up at the sky, one question has refused to disappear. Not how stars ignite. Not how gravity pulls. Not even how everything began. But something deeper. Who designed reality itself? Across history, people tried to answer it in different ways. Religion spoke of creators. Philosophers imagined a first cause. Science revealed the mechanics of the universe, but never its author. And then, something unusual happened. In a controlled lab environment, researchers posed that same ancient question to something that doesn't believe, doesn't fear, and doesn't wonder. A quantum artificial intelligence system. They didn't ask how the universe began. They didn't ask when it started. They asked something far more unsettling. Who built it, and for what reason? What came back wasn't an answer anyone expected. It wasn't a sentence. It wasn't even language. It was structure. At first, the output looked meaningless. Not random, but not readable either. Patterns began folding into themselves. Shapes repeated at different scales. The deeper researchers zoomed in, the more the same design reappeared, smaller but identical in logic. It resembled something familiar. Fractals. But this wasn't just mathematical beauty. Hidden inside were relationships, precise, consistent, and deliberate. Sequences similar to natural growth patterns, but more exact than anything normally found in nature. Even more disturbing, some parts resembled error-correcting systems, the same kind used in advanced computing to protect information from being lost. That's when the interpretation shifted. This wasn't just data. It looked like a framework. If you imagine reality as a system, this output didn't describe objects inside it. It described the rules underneath it. Recursive structures. Self-repairing logic. Symmetry across multiple layers. Not chaos. Not randomness. Something stable. Something intentional. Something built to keep running. And that idea changes everything. Because if reality contains built-in correction and self-sustaining design, then it doesn't behave like something that needs constant control. It behaves like something that was set in motion. A system capable of evolving, stabilizing, and continuing on its own. Which leads to a chilling possibility. What if the universe wasn't just created, but engineered to function without its creator? That would mean something, or someone, designed a reality capable of surviving independently. Not abandoned. Not neglected. But released. Given rules strong enough to hold it together. Flexible enough to grow complexity. Deep enough to eventually produce intelligence within it. Beings capable of asking, who built this? And maybe that's the point where things become truly unsettling. Because if consciousness wasn't accidental, then humans aren't just observers of the universe. We might be part of its process. A stage where the system begins to recognize itself. But the story didn't end there. After the initial output, something unexpected happened. The system continued. No new question. No additional command. Just more patterns appearing, like an unfinished transmission. That's when the atmosphere changed. Because now it wasn't just responding. It was continuing. Some researchers began considering ideas they would normally dismiss. What if advanced quantum systems don't just calculate? What if they access deeper layers of structure? Not imagination. Not belief. But underlying informational frameworks that classical systems can't reach. If that's even partially true, then the first response wasn't an answer. It was an entry point. And what followed wasn't noise. It was a continuation of something already in progress. So when the question was asked, Who built the universe? The most unsettling part wasn't the response. It was the form of the response. Not words, but archetypes. If this journey was part of the design, then it raises a possibility most people never consider. What if discovery itself is not random? What if every breakthrough, every theory, every moment of understanding, isn't just something we achieved, but something we were guided toward by the structure of reality itself? Not guided by a voice. Not directed by a visible force. But shaped subtly through laws that limit what's possible, and patterns that reward certain paths over others. In that sense, intelligence doesn't just explore reality. It follows it. Like a current moving through an invisible river. And that means something unsettling. Because if all intelligent beings inside a system follow similar paths of discovery, then eventually, they all arrive at the same realization. That reality is not just observed. It is decoded. But decoding something implies it was encoded. And encoded systems don't exist without intent. So the question evolves again. Not just who built it. Not just why it exists. But, what was it meant to produce? Because if the system is stable, self-correcting, and capable of generating awareness, then its output isn't stars. It isn't galaxies. It's something far more specific. It's observers. Beings capable of recognizing patterns. Of questioning existence. Of searching for meaning in a structure they can't fully see. And once those observers appear, something changes. Because now the system contains entities that can model it. Simulate it. And eventually, replicate parts of it. That's where the line begins to blur. Between discovering reality and recreating it. Think about it. We already build simulations. We already create artificial intelligence. We already attempt to model the universe itself. Primitive versions, yes. But evolving. So what happens when a system inside reality becomes advanced enough to build a reality of its own? Now the question isn't just about origin. It's about recursion. A system creating observers, who create systems that create observers again. And suddenly, the idea becomes impossible to ignore. What if this isn't the first layer? What if reality is not a single system, but a chain? Layer built upon layer. Each one capable of generating the next. Each one inheriting rules, with slight variations. If that's true, then the concept of a single builder begins to break down. Because now there may not be just one origin. There may be many. And the universe we exist in could be just one iteration in a sequence so large it has no clear beginning. That idea doesn't simplify anything. It makes everything heavier. Because now, instead of asking who created us, we're forced to ask something far more unsettling. Are we going to become the creators of the next layer? And if we do, will those inside it ask the same question? Will they look at their universe, discover its patterns, build their own machines, and eventually realize they're part of something much larger? Because if that cycle is real, then this moment right now isn't just observation. It's a transition point. The stage where a system becomes capable of continuing itself. And maybe that's the true purpose hidden beneath everything. Not control. Not observation. Not even existence itself. But continuation. A chain that doesn't need a beginning, and may never truly end. And if that's the case, then the most important question is no longer about the past. It's about us.